6 years ago, I quit my job fairly abruptly as a U.S. Secret Service special agent. I didn't have a plan. At the time, I was freshly divorced, semi-recently diagnosed with major depressive disorder, dealing with an eating disorder relapse, and feeling like a complete failure at life. I felt weak, insignificant, and that what I did in my life didn't matter. After getting to some pretty low points, I ended up selling most of my possessions, including my car, renting a car, and piling the dogs in the car and making the long drive from Los Angeles, California, a place that had been home most of my life, and drove all the way to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I thought this was a temporary move to be closer to my family and parents and cousins, but it's been about 5 years, so I live here now and this is home, which is a great thing. I didn't think that those moves I made were bold moves. In fact, I thought they were pretty crazy and pretty weak, in fact, because I thought I was a failure. When I think of bold women, I think of those historic figures, the ones that overcome all kinds of adversity and just trudge through no matter what, fearless. Those Wonder Woman-esque boss babes we all can drum up at a moment's notice. But that wasn't me. But speaking of boss babes, I decided shortly after I came to Iowa to take a short trip to Miami Beach, just for fun. I'd never been there before, thought it would be a fun little trip. One night I went to a little cafe in Miami Beach somewhere, I don't even remember where anymore, and I was the only person there aside from a middle-aged woman sitting outside on the patio. She turned around and introduced herself, and I'm a private person and I don't really like talking to strangers that much. But over the course of the next hour and a half or so, we shared our life stories and compared notes of learning lessons we'd learned throughout the years. And I made the flippant comment of, I'm glad and I'm thankful that I was in the Secret Service because it made me strong enough to start over in my 30s. And she said, no, Melanie, you're wrong there. The Secret Service didn't make you strong. The Secret Service just showed you how strong you really were. And I think you should go back and start reflecting on that. And I didn't really put it into a practical application for a little while, but now as I look back, I realize that the Secret Service gave me a lot. It brought out that boldness, it brought out that strength, but it also taught me about protection. And that was something that I had failed to do in my personal life inside and out. I was great at protecting others, but failed to do that in my personal and my own life. And as I look back, I realized that living boldly for me has been shaped by protecting others in the Secret Service. The first thing I've learned about living boldly is that boldness and fear really go together. And it's about overcoming that fear to find that strength you already have to make a big move. And I first realized that, just didn't apply it until later, when I was at the Secret Service Academy at 22 years old. What was I thinking? I had no military experience, no law enforcement experience. I pretty much had nothing to offer except I was a trainable candidate. And during training, one of the instructors pretty much told me, you're not gonna make it. We're gonna send you home because you're not assertive, you don't have this command presence, you're not handling business, you're not confident, you need to get it together or you're gonna go home. And it really kind of made me angry at the time, and the stubborn part of me, said, well, I'm gonna show him. And I handled business, and I didn't know I could handle business, and I ended up making it through training. But I had to overcome a lot of fear. I was afraid of just failing. And so by overcoming that fear, it brought out a strength that gave me the boldness to handle business. That was one big lesson early on. Secondly, I learned that living boldly means being imperfect and just owning it. For somebody like me who was in the Secret Service, I thought I had to have it together 100% of the time. I am responsible for the physical protection of important political figures. I am not allowed to be weak. I am not allowed to fall apart. But I was among many Secret Service agents, someone who struggled with depression. And at the time when my marriage was falling apart and I thought my life was falling apart, I was transitioning to a new assignment in the Secret Service. I called the Employee Assistance Program with the Secret Service, and a lot of jobs have those kind of programs. Call us if you need anything. And my ego said, that'll never apply to me, I've got it together. And when I thought I was at my lowest and weakest point by contacting them, it really was one of my boldest and strongest moments because I was vulnerable and bold enough to admit I needed help. I thought I was going to be judged, criticized, maybe even lose my job, lose my clearance. I thought that I was just going to be, just bring out all of my failures. When in reality, it was quite the opposite. And I'm so thankful to the Secret Service for jumping in and helping me, and that asking for help was not something I was shamed for at all. So that's a thankful thing for the Secret Service. And lastly, by choosing to protect myself, I realize now, 5 years later, that I am more open to positive additions and changes in my life because I took charge and started protecting myself. And the Secret Service taught me about protection, and it's also about access control. Protection is access control. It's that fine, delicate balance of whether access to the person you're protecting should be granted, denied, limited, or revoked. And you have to do it perfectly for your protection mission to be fulfilled. And I realized I was fairly good at doing that in my workplace and in my professional life, but I had failed miserably in my personal life at doing that. I gave work an all access pass, full access, you have complete control of me. And when I was hurting, I withdrew access, revoked, denied access to everyone and everything else because I felt validated at work and I was being hurt in my personal life and everything was falling apart. And that's a pretty dysfunctional balance. And as resilient as we think we are, it does catch up with us. That kind of negligence on my personal protection caught up with me immensely. And as I learned how to protect myself and start granting access to those positive things, I realized how great you can build relationships when you are protecting yourself better. When I finally revoked access to a job and started over, I went to Iowa and started better relationships with my parents. It made me more receptive to new relationships and maybe more receptive to talking about my problems and talking about the things I had overcome with others. And just like that woman that was in Miami Beach at the cafe, she turned around and boldly started a conversation with a stranger and offered a nugget of encouragement that has lasted for the last several years and put me on a trajectory to where I am today, a version of Melanie Lentz I am really proud to be. And so my encouragement for you today is to recognize your boldness. In the same way that woman in Miami Beach told me to look at my experiences in the Secret Service and celebrate the boldness and the strength, I encourage you to do the same. You know you have overcome a lot. Your weakest moments might be your strongest, and you never know when you're walking down the street today that finding that well-protected self-protection in yourself might make you more receptive to looking at a stranger and offering a word of encouragement yourself. So celebrate your boldness and just let it shine today as you go about your day.